Let's talk about the tenure track job. For so many in academia, it's the dream, right? The ultimate goal. But man, the path to get there can feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle in the dark. Well, in this explainer, we're turning on the lights and giving you the map. We're going to break down the key strategies you absolutely need to know to navigate the academic job market and land that amazing position. Ready? Let's get into it.
So, this is the big question, isn't it? The one that probably keeps a lot of PhD students and postdocs up at night. With a market that everyone knows is tough, is that dream of a permanent academic home, is it even possible anymore? The short answer? Yes, absolutely. But, and this is a big but, it's not going to happen by accident. It demands a really sharp, deliberate strategy.
Okay, so before we jump into all the strategies, let's just take a second to talk about the prize. What exactly is a tenure track position, and why is it such a big deal in the academic world?
At its heart, it's an entry-level professorship, but with this incredible built-in pathway to a permanent job. For about 5 to 7 years, you work to prove your value, through your research, your teaching, and service to the university. And the reward for all that hard work? Tenure. It's a permanent spot that gives you this unbelievable intellectual freedom, a voice in leadership, and a level of stability that's just really rare in any job anywhere.
All right, now for a dose of reality. Let's talk about the landscape today. And look, the point of this isn't to discourage you. It's about being smart and strategic. You have to know the challenges to beat them. So let's break down some of the numbers.
So this right here, this shows a huge shift in academia. In a lot of places, a staggering 70% of new faculty jobs are now non-tenure track. That means only 30% of the roles are those permanent path positions we're talking about. It tells you right away that the competition is going to be fierce simply because the number of spots is so limited.
And this trend can get really intense in specific high-demand fields. Just look at computer science in the US, for example. There was a 33% drop in the number of tenure track positions advertised compared to 2024. That's a really significant tightening of the market in a very short time.
So what happens when things get tight at home? Well, people start looking elsewhere. We've seen a 21% jump in academics from the US applying for jobs in other countries. And what that means for you is that the talent pool is now global. Your competition isn't just at the university down the road. It's on the other side of the world.
Okay, so that's the challenging reality. I know, it sounds a little grim, but now let's pivot to the solution. How do you build a profile that doesn't just compete, but actually stands out from the crowd? It all starts with building a rock-solid foundation, and you need to start laying it years before you even think about applying.
First things first, your publication record. This is the absolute cornerstone of your application. Let me be really clear, it's non-negotiable. This is the #1 piece of evidence that shows your research potential and your ability to contribute. You can bet that search committees are going to look at this more closely than anything else.
And if you want proof of just how much this matters, get this. We heard from one successful applicant who said that having 4 additional papers in the pipeline, papers they could talk about during their interviews, was the key factor that got them multiple job offers. That tells you your research pipeline has to keep moving, even when you're busy with the job search itself.
A long list of publications is great, it's impressive, but what holds it all together? That's your research mission. This is the story, the narrative that connects all the dots of your work. It's what takes you from being just a competent researcher to being seen as a potential leader, a visionary in your field.
The trick is to tell this story in a way that makes sense, kind of like a timeline. You want to connect your past, your present, and your future. So you start with your past, your completed projects that show you have a solid base of expertise. Then you talk about the present, what you're working on right now that shows the immediate value you'd bring. And finally, you paint a picture of the future, laying out your plans for grants and new projects to prove you've got a long-term sustainable vision.
Now, I know research often gets all the attention, but please, do not underestimate how important teaching is. This is especially true if you're applying to liberal arts colleges or institutions that are really focused on teaching. Having strong, documented teaching experience can be a massive advantage.
So how do you build that standout teaching profile? Well, here's what you do. First, aim for fantastic student evaluations. You want to be consistently getting above a 4.5 out of 5. Next, write a really thoughtful teaching philosophy. Make sure you highlight any experience you have mentoring undergraduate researchers. That's huge. And finally, design syllabi that really show you're thinking about how to be an inclusive and effective teacher.
All right, you've done the work, you've built a strong core profile, now it's time for the active job search. Let's get into the tactical side of things.
how to run the application gauntlet and come out on top.
If you only take one piece of advice from this whole explainer, please let it be this. You have to tailor every single application. I'm serious. Sending out generic one-size-fits-all materials is probably the most common mistake people make, and for a hiring committee, it's often an instant reason to put your application in the no pile.
And you can see here, the difference between a pitfall and a winning strategy is just night and day. Don't send a generic cover letter. Instead, echo the specific words and phrases from the job ad itself. Don't ignore the institution. Show them you get it by talking about the work of faculty who are already in that department. Every single document, your cover letter, your CV, everything has to be customized.
So a great tailored application gets your foot in the door. But the interview? That's a whole other challenge. Think of it less like a Q&A and more like a performance, a multi-stage performance where you have to prove you're the complete package, a brilliant researcher, an awesome teacher, and a great colleague they'd want to work with every day.
Preparation here is everything. You need to practice your 50-minute job talk until you can do it in your sleep. You've got to be ready for a chalk talk, where they might ask you to go up to a whiteboard with no slides and just map out your future research. Seriously. Research the campus culture, and, so important, prepare really good questions that show you're genuinely interested in them too.
Okay, you made it through. You crushed the interview, and you can see the finish line. But hey, don't put your feet up just yet. These final steps, thinking about funding, negotiation, and just keeping yourself resilient, this is how you truly seal the deal. This is what I call the three-step endgame. First, you need to signal that you're a good long-term bet, so apply for grants and fellowships. Second, when that offer comes in, you negotiate with confidence. Things like salary, startup funds, even how many courses you teach. They're often more flexible than you think. And third, and this is a big one, you have to be resilient. Rejection is a normal part of this process. It's smart to have a plan B. So what does this all boil down to? What's the big takeaway? I think it comes down to these four mindsets. First, resilience, because this whole thing is a marathon, not a sprint. Second, strategy, because having a clear roadmap is your key to success. Third, tailoring, because showing that you are the right fit is everything. And finally, confidence. You've done the work. You've earned your spot at the table. So there you have it, the complete strategic roadmap, from building your profile all the way to sealing the deal. The only real question left is, where do you go to put this whole plan into action and actually start the journey? Well, the best place to start is academicjobs.com. It's the top job board out there designed specifically for jobs in higher education. It's where you're going to find the opportunities that match the amazing profile you've worked so hard to build. So take this roadmap, head over to academicjobs.com, and go find your future.